Zoom recording. Hey there, everyone. And thanks to everybody joining us today. This is our first webinar with AVM Alliance. And so we're going to try to get some helpful information to help our families today. And then I've got this recorded. So at the end, our guest speakers have said that they can answer any questions that you guys have. So we look forward to getting some answers and some ideas today. So I'm going to start off with Kyler. My son is Kyler. He was 15 when he had his diagnosis and his first stroke. He had microbleeds for on and off for about 5 years until he was able to have his surgery and have his AVM removed. And this will be our third time starting this week to start college. So we've started, but you learn a little bit every time, and I feel like it's trial by fire. And so this time we said, hey, okay, we're going to get some additional help. And so actually the people that are helping Kyler are here with us today, who is Academic Coaching for Excellence. So thank you guys for joining us. So real fast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you our first tip. So Kyler has had multiple neuropsychological evaluations. If you have not had a neuropsychological evaluation yet, I do highly recommend it. You can get your neurologist or your neurosurgeon to order one. It's just basically a day of the kid playing games with a licensed person, medical professional, and basically they tell you where your kid is at, where they're struggling, and what they can work on. And for Kyler, his problem is that he can remember, he has the ability to remember, but he has a hard time retrieving that memory. So what they said was when he had his gamma knife, it damaged the white matter tracts in his brain. So I could tell Kyler, go clean your room, and he would say, okay, mom, I'll go clean my room. And then I'll go to the room and room's not clean. Right. And it's because he doesn't remember the steps that need to be taken to make that happen. So for Kyler, he would also potentially not even remember to clean the room. But if I gave him multiple choice, then he could say, oh, you told me to clean the room. So if I said, did I ask you to feed the dog? Did I ask you to bring me a glass of water? Or did I ask you to clean your room? He would say, oh, you asked me to clean my room. And that's why, different coaching and these different things that we're going to talk about today are helpful, because when we realize how our kids' brains work, then we're better able to provide the right kind of accommodations and assistance to help them be more independent and successful. So for Kyler, one of the things that we were told, which is common with kids that have executive function disorder, is it's remembering the order and the steps and the stages of everything that they're supposed to do. So I'm going to share my screen today. I think it's called desktop one. We're going to try. Let's just see if it just does the main desktop. All right, so let's just see if this works for me. Okay, so it now says that I am screen sharing. So now you should see all of my screen. Is that what you guys see? Can I get like a thumbs up if this is working? Right now it says that we have our webinar. Perfect. All right. So what I have done is this is chat. Everybody hears about OpenAI, and this is Chat GPT. And so there are two different kinds of Chat GPT. One is a free version and one is a paid version. And so this version is the paid version, and it's $20 a month. But if you wanted to see if it was going to work, if you wanted to see if it was an option, you could always start off with the free version and just see if you could get your kid to use it, or you could see, how it works. So it's something you can download and start for free. So for me, I created a new project. So it's just you go to chat. There's a place right here where you can talk to chat, and then you can create projects having to do with specific things that you want to teach chat. So if you want to teach your chat to help you, you have to do the paid version so that it remembers. So for me, once I got Kyler's neuropsychological evaluation, I put the neuropsychological evaluation into here by simply dragging and dropping it in. And then chat was able to read the what I had. So as an example, so you can see it here, if I wanted chat to see something or to know about something, you simply drag the image and you drop it in, and then chat can read it in 2 seconds. It doesn't matter if it's 2 pages or 20 pages, chat's got it like that. Okay. So what I did is I asked chat, I gave chat the neuro testing, and we talked about it, and we talked about the results. And then I said I taught chat about how I wanted it to respond. So I said, hey, now that you know this is Kyler's problem, right? How do we create a chat in his phone so that when he asks questions, he can get steps on how to do something? So as an example, I can say, hi, can you show me how you would respond? Oops. When Kyler says, what do I need to do to get ready for bed? So, as an example, then here's how I would respond. I'm going to give you a gentle and response, supportive with executive function scaffolding. Let's walk you through your bedtime routine together. Here is your checklist. Let's shut down your things. Let's take your medicine. Let's brush your teeth. Let's make sure that you have good hygiene, right? And then you say, hey, do you want me to have a visual checklist? Do you want me to create a template with reminders? Let me know what would help Kyler most, and I can do it when I'm ready. So in this case, this chat helped me create a routine in Kyler's chat that I copied and pasted so that when he needs to do something, the computer knows how to do the item, in a way, how to provide the information in a way that's going to help the kid. So Kyler, whenever he's like, "Hey, I'm supposed to do something now," we are teaching him to put in his computer, "Hey, I'm supposed to go to bed." Well, we've taught his chat that he has a dog named Sam. We've taught his chat that he has epilepsy, so he's supposed to take his medicine twice a day. So we create these routines, and then when Kyler goes to his phone, it tells him what he's supposed to do. So that's an example. But the one thing I will say is it's always good as a parent to monitor what chat says. And I'm going to give you an example. So Kyler asked chat, and this is a good reason to teach kids that everything that chat says is not true because it can hallucinate. Chat asked him, "Who is Kyler?" This was the free version before we paid and made him say who Kyler was. And Kyler goes, "Oh no, mom, chat thinks I'm dead." So that's your funny thing that, yeah, 2 thumbs down that we had to educate chat on. So I will turn it over now to the real professionals. But anybody has any questions, let me know. I'm going to stop my screen sharing, and I hope that that made sense to everyone. But I have found it to be very helpful because I don't want Kyler to rely on me for everything. And so sometimes with his questions now, I say, well, ask your chat. And we also have named his chat. His chat goes by the name of Riley. So I say, ask Riley. That way he knows not to just 100% rely on mom. And then I follow up with, well, what did your Riley say? And he said, oh, my Riley said I'm supposed to do this. And I'm like, good answer. Let's go. Let's try it that way. And it does seem to help us. All right. So with us today are Toby and
Kathy.
Kathy. Thank you.
It's okay. His wife's name's Karen, and we're all family, and so people switch our Toby switches our names. He's called me Karen before, and her Kathy. So it's pretty common for us.
Well, thank you for joining us, and I'll let you guys take over from here.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for inviting me. Became introduced to Kyler was that his mom called us and was asking about our services. So I'm gonna just give you a brief of what we do for students so that you will have a better understanding. I'll probably start with our backgrounds because I think you definitely always want to work with people that have a background that supports the path you're wanting to take with your children. And so I am retired teacher, principal, director of special ed. I have a certification in special education, all forms, so all disabilities. I actually have worked with students that have the disability that your children have. And now I've always coached students that went through our school system to prepare them for college. And then as I got closer to retirement, people that were outside of our district started reaching out to me to help uh, transition their students into college. And so we now have a business that does that. And that's how the Lewis family got in touch with us. And so, anyway, and then of course there are a lot more students that need this help than I think any of us imagine. So I very quickly employed my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law, and so both Karen, Toby's wife, and Toby help coach students. We, in this case, Toby is working with the student, but we um, try to be their support system when they're in college to help them not miss things. And every student's very individualized, so what works for one doesn't always work for another. And so we have to tweak that as we go. And I know Toby is already looking at some things, but that's what we do. And what I understand from this Zoom is that y'all have some questions, and the age range is big of all the children because we're talking 9 to early 20s. So the questions you're going to have could very much be very different. But if you have the younger kids, for sure, um, the questions the parents are going to ask that have the older children, you definitely want to hear because I promise you this time goes by very fast. And so before you know it, your kid will be the 20-year-old. So um, the oh gosh, we can start with talking about supports in public school, and then move up to college. But um, you are your child's biggest advocate, let me say that. Um, and if there is, well, it's hard to say, but it's hard to know what you can ask for in school or from the school system when you don't know. So that's where it's really good to build a friendship with your somebody in your school system. It doesn't matter if it's teacher, principal, diagnostician, director, special ed, but you want to have a relationship so that they can freely talk to you about, hey, I think we could do this for your child, and then you can ask for it in an ARD meeting. Um, there are people out there that can help you with that. There are individuals who've retired from school systems that will help you if you don't have a relationship with anybody within your school system that is going to help you with that. but you definitely would want to look for that because there's every child, even with a similar disability, has different levels that they're working with. And so, where one, you might be trying to transition to college because they're capable of that. Another student, we might need to be looking at their a facility that they need to go to out of high school or partially half day high school, half day or the facility so they can be trained on um, jobs so that when they graduate, they have more independence. Uh, and so there's just such a wide range of that. That's why we want to open this up for questions so we can directly answer what we can for you based on your children. So um, that's what Toby and I are here for. And so I don't know how y'all want to go about, Raylene, about asking the questions.
Okay, I'll start off, and then I've also opened up the chat. So if people have specific questions, we can put those in. And then I gathered questions before, to begin with. The first question is, how important do you feel it is to notify the school of the diagnosis? And I'll give my answer first, which is just that I feel like it's very important because the school system won't know what to expect or how to best take care of your child if you don't communicate that with them. And in my opinion, even if your child has had, complete surgery removal and they are, I mean, woohoo, totally AVM free, I feel like it's still very important to have, at the very least, an emergency action plan, just in case something happens at the school. And additionally, when you're looking at them going through their classes, a lot of the kids have neurofatigue. So as parents, you know your kid best, but I think always keeping open communication is important.
From the school's end, and that's where I can answer, and I feel can answer very freely now because I don't work for a school system anymore. But from the school's end, it's so important that you come in and you inform the school of the diagnosis your child has and what that diagnosis means. I can tell you the first students that I received that had any kind of disability that I had not been trained on through the years or college, I had to do my own research to best serve that child. And so a parent coming in and giving me information makes that process go by much quicker. And then we can be on the same page talking about what your expectations as a parent are and then what we are able to do with those expectations. So, for instance, if you're like, okay, I need you to know that this can happen again, and here are the signs, and if you can make sure your staff is trained to watch for those signs, that's what we're looking for. Well, if a parent doesn't let the school district know and then gives them that information, you are waiting for a person to do that research. And everybody's human, and I can tell you because I was in charge of the entire school district, when there's thousands of children, it and I you are worried about your child and you should be. But the quicker and the more accurate information you provide, the services are so much better for your child.
Absolutely. Okay, so the next question is, my child is rising, and we're trying to build their independence in school. Can you explain some of what you do to help parents and to help the kids in terms of executive functioning skills? Because I do not quite understand what my kid does not understand, but I want to help them build an independent life.
Okay, how old is that kid?
This kid is about to start high school, it looks like.
Okay, so in order to help with executive functioning, it is going to be like raising any other child. So let me start there. You're going to have certain things that you want that child to do, and you're going to have your rewards and consequences kind of thing. However, because it's a fine line between my child's playing me and my this is my child's disability. And sometimes that's hard to distinguish. And trust me, they start, they can definitely deceive you. So you're gonna have to figure out, is this really my child? I mean, like and I'm gonna use the example you gave, clean the room. Are they trying to really not clean the room, or is it that they're forgetting? Well, you have to make that call as a parent, but once you do, when you put in place the reminders, and we're finding that the best reminders for the students now with today's technology is their phone. Now, if you don't use a phone, then I would say some other form of technology that you could have around the house that would remind your child, like when they entered a room, or when you had certain things for them to do. The phone we're finding the best, because the phone will give them reminders. What we do is help them set up those reminders, and then we follow through to see, did you actually get it done? Let's say that a student was supposed to uh, go to class. They put a reminder in that they have class. First, they have their alarm to wake them up, and then they have the reminder to go to class. And then, the time passes, and then we're checking on that student to see, did you get to class? Yes, I did. So children with any kind of brain issue, uh, if they have to have that outside source, right now the phone has been the most useful tool for us, because you can put lots of reminders on there. It's not a one time and then you have to go back and reset. You can put a lot on there.
Okay, so are you saying that, for example, you would set them up like a Gmail, and then they would have a Gmail calendar that would send notifications? Is that what, something that parents should do? Or do you find that the to-do list reminders is more helpful? So I know, for example, when I had recommended chat in the beginning and showed how I had uploaded everything so that the chat knew how to deal with my kid, I can also set it up so that for specific reminders, it will send an email. Like it won't notify him on his phone, but I can have the chat send an email. So, what do you find that kids tend to respond to the most, or what tips and tricks should parents maybe start to use to try to help that child gain their come
The
on,
independence you want. Yeah,
independent.
I get it.
Yes, sorry, aphasia mode.
So no, you're good. You're good. Um, the okay. I don't find the emails as effective, because then you have a child that forgets to check their emails. What I find the most effective is that phone beeping or vibrating, because that stimulates another brain process, that it's like, oh, okay, it's tactile. When they hear it or they feel it, then they respond to it. And it's like, oh, then it's telling me this. So if you're setting it up on like your Google Calendar or whatever, as long as that phone vibrates or dings, and they get that other sense of that attracts them to the information, then that's what I have found to be the best way. The other stuff, we're finding we have to set reminders for them to check their emails. And so you're having to do an additional step, because they don't remember that. They just don't. And so that's, I think, answers your question, that it might be helpful to set it all up on the Google Calendar, but there's in that you can have it set where it actually makes a noise or vibrates your phone.
I would add a little bit about that, and I'll kind of introduce myself. I'm Toby Lepley. Like Kathy said, I work with Kathy, brother-in-law to her. I was in non-formal education for 32 years. I worked with the 4-H and youth development program, both in Texas and then in Louisiana as either the associate state director or the state directors. And I do have the honor of working with Kyler, Ray Lynn's son, and it has been a learning lesson for us. And I think number one, and I'm going to tell you my perspective as his academic coach of how my introduction and how working with Kyler is really a fluid process right now because I've known him for about 3 weeks, but this was the first week of school, so I've already noticed some things that I'm going to have to do different to help support him in his process. And I think as we go through this first week in particular, it's going to be there. But, I think understanding the diagnosis that he has and how he has been very open. He doesn't hide what has happened to him, and I'm so proud of him from that standpoint. I think a lot of it is from the standpoint of how do I support him emotionally and mentally to make sure that he knows that while he's got challenges, there are still people that are 150% behind him in making sure that we can do everything that we need to do. Are we going to have the playbook for his 100% success in college? Probably not right now, but we are developing it with him. And in communication, I think that you really have to look at the child or you look at the young person to see how they are managing their life. I'll say this about Kyler and bless his heart. Last night we had a meeting and orientation, and he wasn't able to be there. But he called me and he was like, "I'm so sorry." I could tell that there was, distress in him from the standpoint of not being able to attend the meeting. And that's not what I wanted from him was because I can go back over what we talked about in the meeting. What's more important is making sure that I'm communicating with him to be able to make sure that he's going to class and he's retaining the information that he needs to. So one of the things that we are looking at, and I guess Raylene, you can probably give an update to see kind of where you are with the process, but we're looking at a computer that will be able to accept dictation from the professor, the teacher, that will then be able to put that into words, to text message, or to text for him to review and have his notes. And then from there, go and develop his own notes. It's just not a matter of recording what the professor says and spitting out a script or a manuscript of it, but he's got to go back and put it into his words or into his learning abilities to where when it comes time to study for it, he's going to be able to know and be familiar with it. So I don't want Kyler to just have a bunch of text message or text from classes. He's got to go through and disseminate that information and pull it down. That's what I'm going to be working with him on after the first week, after he gets some of these scripts done. Then we can go through and start highlighting and trying to identify the important things that he will then transfer into either note cards or Quizlet or some way that we have found that he can effectively and most efficiently retain the knowledge that he needs for the test. Now, the good thing is, of course, because of the diagnosis, he has special accommodations with the university and that's another thing is if you're looking at somebody that is fixing to go to college, know that every university has a special services, a special accommodations office that will work with kids, work with the students and all of that. So those are some of the things that kind of from the standpoint of looking and trying to organize his basis there that we're trying to lay out this first couple of weeks. And we're probably going to have to adjust it to see, he's very good. He's going to take 12 hours. So we're going to try that. But the other thing is today, and I actually said it last night and you were talking about the fact of like a Google alert or a Google calendar and all of that. I actually sent him a note this morning, a text message that said, "Hey, good luck on the second day of class. Don't forget, you're going to be great in your," I can't remember which one it was. I think it was his English class at 9:15 in room so and so. So that was just a subtle reminder to him, and I sent it at 8 o'clock, and I actually programmed it in my phone last night to deliver a delayed text message, so I didn't have to get up at 8 o'clock to do it. I knew that it would do it for me. But that away, you know, because I'm still learning how to work best with him as well. So as soon as I sent it, he was like, "Yes, sir, I'm on my way." So that gave me the confidence to know that he was up, he was ready, he was looking forward to it, and we had a great day. After class today, I knew he was out. I just texted a follow up and I said, "How was class today?" Really easy. He sent back a note that says, "Good, always wonderful today," type thing. So I think you've got to figure out, even as a parent, and I'll say for some of my kids, I have resulted to texting them on Instagram, on I don't Snapchat, because they only answer Snapchat. And some of the parents have told me is if you want to communicate, you better do Snapchat. So I ultimately just really hate Snapchat, but if that's the way that I've got to at least alert them to go check their email, or I'm fixing to send you a normal person's text, please respond to it. You just have to kind of meet that child wherever they are. And especially as they start to develop their independence of where they are in life, it's kind of one of those things. But I would say this: working with Kyler has really been a great opportunity for me because it's going to allow us to be able to really see some different techniques that we can use, and I think really be diverse. And like with Raylene saying how they use AI, I was just so impressed with the first day that I met him and how he was communicating with it and how it was helping him really develop some good thought processes and everything. So that's kind of from the standpoint of my work with Kyler and moving forward from there.
Okay, so we had a couple questions that I think Kathy, you might be good with. I wanted to say people have asked, I'm seeing a couple of questions in regards to accommodations. And so, Kathy, if you could go back to and talk a little bit about how somebody would get a 504
Okay.
accommodation with the school. And I'm going to say just really quick, people are asking, so for the kids that have memory issues, the one thing that we started with Kyler this year for school is called a cue sheet. And it is a accommodation that you can ask for. And so basically, a cue sheet is a memory aid to help when they're like going to take a test or a quiz or something. It is reviewed in advance, but it's something that the kids make that doesn't have the answers, but it gives them the information that they need to help recall the answers. So if you guys have other questions about that, we can talk about that, later too. And Kathy, if you could also talk about what different accommodations can be, that would be fantastic.
Okay. So, um, at the public school level, you are looking at a 504, or especially both of them have ARD meetings. So when they move on to the college, they don't call it special education, they call it 504. Now, the difference between the two is that 504 is actually federally, uh, they the federal government now, all that changes and it's all that part is very fluid, but um the state in the past has been the one responsible for the special ed, and the federal government then put in the 504. 504 follows your student, or can follow your student all the way through, even into college. And so that when Toby talks about that we can get students accommodations at the college level, they do call that a 504. Two very different approaches. In the public school setting, of course, you're invited, your child's invited to the 504s. If you have not had a 504 meeting, you need to ask for one. And that's all you have to do is call the school and request a 504 meeting. Any student that has any kind of disability can have a 504 plan. Okay. And a disability can be a broken limb. I mean, a broken arm, broken leg kind of thing. And they get 504 plans too. It's whatever you need to make a level playing field to try to level your child with a child that doesn't have, a disability with a functioning brain. So, uh, the accommodations, oh gosh, they're really going to vary, but you definitely want more time. Um, and when you ask for more time, now I'm talking about public school, when you ask for more time, they're going to want to put a number on it. So kind of have that thought in your mind, like if a student gets 30 minutes to do this, my child may need 45 minutes or my child may need an hour. And so they call that time and a half or double time. And that specifically goes into writing. Now, when you make an accommodation for a student or you in the school come up with that accommodation, if your child is still not being successful with that accommodation, you have all the right to go back and have them adjust that accommodation. That's at both levels. So let's just say you had time and a half and they weren't quite getting everything done, then you can ask for double time. Um, the most schools do the time issue by just allowing the student to take it home to do it because their class period ends when the bell rings and then they go to the next class. So it's hard to give a student double time when there's not double time there. That's usually how they allow the student, but then that has your child coming home having sometimes a lot of homework. And so they can reduce, they can't change the concepts at all, but they can reduce how many problems your child has on that concept. Um, so if, for instance, you're looking at math, if they're asking 10 similar questions, you can have that reduced so that your student doesn't have 10, but they still have to produce the material of understanding. They just don't have to produce it for 10 full problems.
Call that reduced course load. So
Correct.
reduced course load is something that you can ask for if you need it.
Now we're talking at the public school level. Well, I will be more than glad to talk at the college level there because there is a big difference between the two. Um, of course, you can get a different testing environment, and that means they go to a different room most of the time when they're testing in public school. They'll have pull-out programs for them. Um, the things technology. Your school districts can provide that technology. If it's, for instance, I'll take your son because I know him. I don't know anybody else I'm talking to here. But if he were in public school and you have developed this use for AI and he is using it and it's helping him become more independent, then the school, when you go to those meetings and you explain that to them, then you can ask them to produce that same thing at the school level. And with that, they're supposed to provide the computers and things that the student needs in order to have that access. And so now that we have this new law that students can't carry a cell phone at school, I would say that would, if my child, especially were in high school level, and we were really developing that way to keep them stimulated to remember what to do, that would definitely be an accommodation I'd be asking for, that my child could carry their cell phone. There's going to be some pushback on that this first year with this new law. They're going to tell you they can't do it and that kind of thing. However, I'll be the first to tell you that the laws differ for students who have 504 or special ed diagnosis. So, and I diagnose is probably not the right word to use, but that is something I definitely would be asking for if that was a tool you use. Now, if your child isn't showing teachers that they use it for education, that's going to be a fight, and you don't want to fight. So, um, you really need to be using it, not just they're going to get on and want to play with their phone. So I would make sure, but that I'm telling you, I'd be asking for that if I had a child in y'all's situation.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll say for my kid, I have another kid who has PTSD, and other, issues just because of my older kid's problem. And we got a letter from the psychiatrist, submitted it. We are having a new meeting. I'm never afraid to go to the school and say, "Hi, we need to change the 504," which is what we are doing now, because of the new law, and that hasn't been a problem at all. So I think, especially in our situation, most schools do understand that we're trying to help our kids be more independent in the future, and that technology is needed. So we do need to make sure that they provide the technology. Now, just a couple of other things that I wanted to add that I know you can jump in on too, on things to ask for or know that they exist. The first thing is, for us, we still don't know how Kyler learns the best, right? And so
right.
that's kind of why Toby was talking about, okay, well, we're going to try this and then we're going to try this, because you have to remember that, like, not everything works for every kid.
Right.
But one of the things that is available is all textbooks, as well as all reading material, can be provided for free with a doctor's letter that makes it audible. They're digital, audio technology. Do you remember the name of the company that does that? Because I can look it up if you don't, and I can, include it in comments later on.
In our school district, the textbook companies that we purchased textbooks from provided that to the school district.
Yeah, so
And so it
they
wasn't
definitely.
a particular company, it was whoever we purchased the textbook from.
Okay. I know
And
for sure you can get it from your company, from the textbook company, but I think that most books, there is also a third party organization that does that. So that's really good to know that for sure you can get it, because
yeah.
people should not have trouble. So I always recommend, download, get the information so that you can get the book as an audio book,
Mhm.
as well, just because you're going to have to diversify how well they learn. Another accommodation that we found exceedingly helpful was for our kids, that have, headaches, or they get too stimulated, or they get neurofatigue. Time to say, hey, I need to go lay down in the nurse's office for 20, 30 minutes. I need to take like a mental break. If the kids
Mhm.
are loud and there's an assembly that day, my kid can't handle that, then we need to put in the accommodation that we need to be able to separate, go to a quiet place. Do not be afraid to ask for that, because sometimes there's just so much stimulation on that brain that it is hard to function. Kyler, has been, a full year since his last surgery, and still he cannot handle, so much loudness all around him. He has to take a break. So that's something else that you can ask for. But we call it like intervention to mitigate, uh, symptoms. Uh,
Yeah. So with that, one thing we found really effective for parents and for us, because as y'all are learning about what's going on with your child, so is your education system, because they're all very unique children. I mean, you can take two children that have the same exact issue and they're totally different, and they're totally different on how you approach them, how you teach them, how you support them. And so, one thing that I think helped a lot for all of us is that you ask the school to document, and you can talk to them about your time frames. Um, some of our students who were extremely severe, we documented every 5 minutes what that student was doing, how they were doing, were they modeling something, were they demonstrating they had a headache, what time of the day it was, because that was on the sheet as well. And then others, it could be as far out as an hour. During that hour, what were they able to do? What things did they present? For the younger kids, to me, that was very, very helpful for both the parents, because then you can provide that to doctors to let them know, this is what they're seeing in this 7 hour day that they have my child. It was also helpful for the school because we look for patterns. Like, okay, this child is getting overstimulated at 10 o'clock almost every day. What's going on at 10 o'clock? Oh, well, that's when they are surrounded by these particular students, or they're in this particular room that's painted a different color, or this teacher uses a lot of sound in their instruction. And so then we start drilling down on that. If you don't have a school district that will drill down those sheets, the information sheets will provide you the information you need to help the school drill down on it. Because once you start getting those, and you can ask them to send them home to you on Friday, the end of the week, and you can just file them, or you can look at them and say, okay, well, all right, not a problem, we're seeing this. And then if it's continuing or it becomes an issue, then you can look at it and say, okay, now I'm going to go to the school, ask for a 504 meeting, and I'll say, look, have y'all noticed there's a pattern here at 10 o'clock every day? Now we need to figure out why.
That's really.
And so that was always extremely helpful for us when we were dealing with a really serious medical issue of any kind. That was really helpful. Um, I'm trying to think what else. Definitely, um, if you're trying to rebuild the pathways for your child's thinking ability, you want the school to also be on that path. So we need to let the school know, hey, here are the top 3 things we would like to see accomplished this year. We want our child to be able to do a task given 3 cues, or we want them to be able to do a task with 2 steps in it. And we want that task to be realistic. So it might not be math, reading, science. It might be they're going to come to the office and they're going to do the mail for the teacher's lounge. And they need to come get the mail from the secretary every day, and they need to go to the box and they need to sort the mail, and it's alphabetical. So you can tie that to education, but it's also a skill that helps them build. And then once we can get past a 2 step, then we add a 3 step where maybe the child is doing something, but that is definitely something you can ask the school to do. And if you have a real forward thinking administration in your school, they will already know certain little task and job things, or what you call them, whatever you want to, but that the student could do, and there not be any harm, or they're not putting them in harm's way or anything. And so that's really, really one of the things that we used a lot for our students that had brain injuries, to begin to, because the more senses we involve in their learning, the easier it is for those pathways to be made or recreated in their brains. And so when we're allowing them to do activities, that really helps. But they got to be small at first, and then we build on them. And so that's definitely some of the out of the box stuff that we ask for.
I love that. I had not thought about that, but I wish we had done some more of that because I think that that helps, in the structured environment. We have one parent who has a 10-year-old who is new to post-stroke recovery, and they're a little bit concerned about how to redirect and make sure that they're not labeled in school, but they do like socially inappropriate things right now. For example, everybody gets a hug. And that's just a result of their brain injury. Do you have any suggestions there?
Okay, so all right, I want to make sure I understand what your this particular thing is. When you say everybody gets a hug, are they doing that because that's the child needs that's had the brain injury, or the child is they're doing that and it's like not like the child doesn't know what to do with that. I mean, where that's my question.
So I believe that the child is just doing some things that I think a lot of people would say would be socially inappropriate. Like we don't hug everybody,
Okay.
but that's what they're doing. But
Okay.
and the parents, they don't want their child to be labeled, but they also are nervous about sending them back to regular school when they're dealing with right now, even in home environment and taking them out in the public, the kid hugging everybody.
Okay. So in those situations, what I have seen work the best with that age group, that 10-year-old age group, that in that realm is actually just a reward system where first of all, you define to the child and the school who's appropriate to hug. Okay. And when I say you define, a lot of kids do, for whatever reason, want to hug the school nurse and the school secretary. And that just seems to be very normal behavior at a public school. And some teachers are okay being hugged. But hugging other students is not, one of those appropriate things. If you are like, okay, I really want my child to stop hugging everybody until we get this under control, and then we can rebuild who's appropriate to hug and who's not, then I would say in your 504 meeting, you state that. Listen, we're trying to get our child to stop hugging. We don't want her punished at school, or him. I'm not sure which, but we don't want them punished at school. We would like to put a reward system in place in the IEP so when our child makes it through 30 minutes of their class and they haven't hugged anybody, that they get a star on their paper. Or they get some, doesn't matter what it is, but again, you got to start small to rebuild those pathways where that's not appropriate. I know Down syndrome kids are big huggers too. And we see a lot of Down syndrome kids in public schools. So that is definitely one thing we have to work on with those students. And that's how we've been the most successful. And then as they get a little older, then you start verbalizing with them, letting them tell you who can you hug, who's appropriate to hug. Okay, good job. And but if you let the school know, the school will also try to not allow your student to hug them, even though it's really okay with the teacher that your child hugs them. Um, they will try to support what it is you're doing or trying to do. But that's how we got a lot of that done. And the students do get to the point where that pathway gets made. Some are longer, takes longer than others, but that is definitely one of the very common things that we see that we have to overcome after students have brain injury, or in this case, they've had a stroke and it's injured their brain. Um, so I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, so just reiterate, you think about, okay, what goals do we want to have? You tell the school the goals. We focus on a rewards system, and we create a reward system where the child can see that they, even if we're talking about small time increments to start, accomplished that goal and that they're doing good because literally you can say, oh, I got a gold star. Oh, that's great. And what happens if you get, as you build on so many gold stars, well, then you have a positive reward experience. And that's what we're doing to create those new neural pathways, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we have just a couple more minutes. I wanted to see if there were any other questions. We probably have time for one more. If not, I'm just going to go through and reiterate real quick some accommodations. Now, you said the words IEP. We did say what a 504 accommodation is. Did you want to say what that was really quick and explain that? Kathy?
It's the individual education plan. And that can be developed for either that's the plan. So when you go in and you say we want our child to stop hugging, they actually write it down in it. It's just a document, and for a teacher, it lets us know that there's a written formal plan for that child on the things that we're trying to improve. And there might be three, there might be five. But that's I'm sorry if I throw out some terms that it's just the years of being in school. Are there, are, I don't want to take your time to explain any of the differences with the college age students unless there are parents that need to know that. Because I know we have a couple 20-year-old students here and some maybe that are getting close to graduating. Is there anybody before we go that needs to know that at this time?
Okay, I don't see any questions on that. So then
Okay.
let's go back and reiterate if people are wanting just a couple of ideas on accommodations they can ask for that Kathy and I have talked about today. One was the cue sheet so that you can ask for kind of a memory sheet that you can take with you to quizzes and exams that typically the child makes themselves or the child makes with their helper, with their parent, or with their coach so that they can trigger their memory so that they can do better on their tests and know what to do. Another one that we talked about was a recording device so that they can record the certain classes. This will help them remember what their teachers are asking for. The next one was copies of us of if there's like slides or PowerPoint materials, providing copies of those documentations like that the student can take home or take with them that they can use to study. Kathy mentioned time and a half or double extended time so that you say, hey, I need more time for to be able to do the same task that everybody else does, whether that means being able to take it home at the end of the day, having more time in the classroom to do that assignment, or being allowed to go to a more quiet place and have the assignment there, a separate testing area. And then mitigating symptoms, we talked about that. Digital books or alternative media was kind of the other one. And I think those are big. The other one I wanted to say that can be on an accommodation is no problems for missed absences or missed deadlines and having a plan for that. So when Kyler was dealing with the brain swelling that was so bad, he had a midline shift. We were able to get doctor's assistance and readjust his IEP 504 so that if he needed to be home for half a day, or in our case, it ended up being like 2 or 3 days a week out of 5, that was okay. And they had a plan. And then, of course, Cassie said reduced course load. So if every kid has to do like 30 math questions, maybe you guys only have to do 10. So those are kind of our examples there. We did get one other question just before we wrap up, which was, do we have any advice to ask for when we're dealing with attention deficit disorder?
Okay. Ask them, or I'll ask you, when you say any advice in dealing, are we talking about with the school helping you or dealing with the student? And while you're typing that out, I'm going to add a couple more accommodations because when I heard her scrolling off this list, I'm like, oh, there's some things missing. So we want programs for the computer. When she says we can use technology, school can also provide the programs. And there is so much out there now that will record the lecture, will then create the notes for your child, and then the study materials. That's going to be a game changer for students with disabilities. The school can pay for and provide that for you. You just have to go to the 504 and tell them why you think your child needs that. I promise you, your child needs that. If you have any kind of brain injury, which y'all do, or your child does, there that support is, I mean, it's like that's a no-brainer. That support is needed. Okay. Oral, especially if those pathways are not there yet where they've gotten their reading comprehension back, they can have oral accommodations where the instructions are read to them, the problems are read to them. The only thing they will not read are passages in a reading class where they're trying to find out if a student can read. They're not going to be able to read the passages to them. But if they want the child to comprehend a reading passage, then that should be able to be read to them. But reading is, it's kind of one of those areas that's kind of hit or miss, but everything else, you should be able to get oral accommodations. If you get these accommodations, normal school day, your child also qualifies for them on any kind of testing that's not school. So I know they're talking about doing away with the STAR test. I hope they get that done. We'll see. But until they do, your child can use those same accommodations on their STAR test. They can also use them when they get into high school. If you want to have them tested on the ACT or SAT for college level stuff, they can use those accommodations on there as well. So just know that that can go with them. And you really would much rather have 5 great accommodations than 10 that were not really driving the student to progress. And so, because you can put so many on there that it's just it's too much that they don't really give it to them in a great manner because there's so much they're having to try to accommodate. But if you can get 5 that are home runs for you that really work for your child, that's a good average. I'll say that. And so,
And the response was for asking for help for attention deficit disorder for 504. The response was both to help our students since it's such a common thing for brain injury. And yeah, even Kyler has an attentive form.
yeah,
And also for specific things to ask for or put in IEP.
okay. So it's kind of a mixed thing here. When they have attention disorder, extra time is not their friend because then they can go. I mean, if you can't pay attention in this 20 minutes, why is adding 20 more going to help? However, if you have someone there that can cue your child to keep them on task, that would help. So if you got the extra time and then you said that an accommodation I want is that we have support staff for my child to cue them when they start, and I'll use the word daydreaming. I don't know that it's daydreaming. I don't know what their brain is doing, but they're not actively working on something school related. Then that you have support staff that cue your child. And a cue can be, a touch on the shoulder, it can be a tap on the desk, it can be just stating your child's name, or it can be you need to finish your math problems. It can be verbal. I mean, but you can have that put in too what the cues are into that plan. Or you can ask the school, what cues would you suggest I put into the plan? And you can build from that because it should be a team effort. You and the school making the best plan for the child. And so I would definitely say when you have now ADD or ADHD due to your child having a stroke, I would be asking for some support personnel, especially if they could not stay on task. And so that would be the big one. And then the level of support is also in question. How much support are we talking about? Somebody that's with them around the clock? Or are we talking about someone who checks, who's in the room helping all other students and they're watching yours and checking on yours on a regular basis? And that just depends on the level of where your child is. Everything else we talked about, um, all of these accommodations are going to help with a student that has ADD, all of them. So I think it's finding the ones that work the best for your child and then making sure that you have consistent, that's the thing to rebuild those pathways is consistency. And that's where having an adult, checking on them with them, um, and then those adults trained in the disability your child has, that they at least have a knowledge of what it is they're dealing with. And I would ask the school, what training are you going to provide this teacher aide or the aides that are in the classroom with my child and the teachers my child has in order to support them and understand that this is not a child trying to not do their work. Because sad to say, some people will look at it that way. Um, the closest example I can give you is I had a student actually involved in an injury when he was on my campus, and he was probably 12, and it was a four-wheeler accident, but he had a brain injury. I mean, we almost lost him. I went to the hospital and everything. It was just absolutely awful. But he made it. That's he and his family, strong fighting family. And but the teachers wanted to treat him the same. They wanted to treat him as though he had never had this accident. And even as he progressed to the next campus, those teachers wanted to treat him that way too. Like, well, we're just going to treat him, I hate to use this word, but normal. We're going to treat him like he's never had an accident. And I was the director of special ed for the district and started getting calls because they were starting to discipline this child. And it was tied directly to his brain not functioning like it should or like it used to. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. I said, y'all gonna die on that cross because you have got to take into account this young man has a brain injury. It's gonna take him longer to get dressed in the morning. So if he comes in behind the buses, you probably don't want to mark him tardy because it takes him longer to get dressed. And they had to buy special clothes. We had to go from blue jeans that button and zip to elastic waistbands because he did not have the capacity to button and zip his pants anymore. And but yeah, so I would definitely ask that what training are you going to provide to the teachers and the staff who are going to work with my child? And really, you're just looking to say that so they realize that you want them to know so that they deal with your child in the correct manner.
That's right. Like we say, not all wounds are visible, and that's a hard thing that we deal with because they can't see the injury because it's on the inside. We are at the end of time today, and oh my gosh, you have been so helpful. Lots of good information. I really appreciate your help. And if you want to say anything else about your business before you go, I just want to thank you very, very much for joining us for this webinar today.
Oh, well, thank you. No, and I don't need to say anything about my business that we love working with kids, but we work with college age kids. So the and we work with all levels. And so I'm glad that y'all found us. I know it's always word of mouth, and so glad that we're getting the opportunity to work with your son. But there are people out there, I will say that. And you know, if you need help, outside help, there are other people. I know a lady that works with families and goes into the public school with them for their 504 meetings and their uh, special ed meetings. So there are people, if you need help, that you can probably Google, if I had to guess.
Yep, you just
And
Google executive function coach, executive function assistant,
yeah.
and then put the grade level. They're absolutely there and it does exist. And you do not have to walk this path alone. Hire the people to help because it's worth every penny for helping get those kids independent and also maximizing their learning opportunity no matter where they are in school.
Before I forget, get your kids started doing a calendar or a planner as early as you possibly can, meaning they're writing okay, like they can write and it's legible. Uh, get them to start writing it down because that's one of the skills we have to work on with the college, all college level students. And if they have that skill by the time they get out of high school, I think it would just serve them so much better to know that they have to keep up with stuff. And, they put it in their planner, they put it in their phone beeps, they go do whatever it is the phone tells them to. And so, anyway, y'all have a great evening. Thank you for inviting us. And, I hope y'all all have a wonderful school year for sure. And that your kids just continue to heal.
Well, thank you. And you're getting lots of thanks and comments saying that you were ultra amazing and helpful. And thank you so much. So, everybody, y'all have a good night and a good school year. Bye bye.
Okay, bye, y'all.